Now there is one that I actually thought people might kind of start yelling and screaming about, and some people might go, I don't want that, you know. But I want you to actually put this in your code, okay? So you can either take out the second staff count or not, but if you take line 16, or leave all that there.
Okay, yeah, you got it. So
and then just before that,
you want me to take out line 16?
I want you right there. Well, if you want to, just leave that.
Okay.
Okay, right here.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to type void space report. We'll just say report. Okay, open close parentheses. Next line, curly open. Go to the end after the read and do a curly, or before the read, whichever you think is more appropriate, and put a close curly. Okay. So that is a local function.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's a function it's a method sitting inside of another method. Now we need to call it. Now you can call this either before or after it occurs. So yeah, that's one of the ways. There's a couple ways it's different than a lambda. That's one of them. Okay. So any place you want to here, just type report. The green squiggle will go away. That's the big thing I want you to do with by calling it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about the green squiggle for a minute.
Yeah.
That code would never have run.
Correct.
If we did not include the call to it. It is a real method, like any other method. You don't call it, it doesn't run.
Right.
Okay. It's not just sitting here waiting. It's not a region. It's nothing like that. So I want that to be very clear. It can happen. The relationship between the report and when it's called and when it's declared doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's really cool.
So we could move this down to like the end of the main
I
method
would always put them at the end.
Yep.
Yes, yes. When they were actually talking about that, and there was this really set of rules on the very first implementation, I go, I will never use it if you leave those rules in place. And they said, well, what if we always put it at either the beginning or the end? Prefer the end, don't care.
Yep.
And then they made it so you could put it anywhere.
Yeah.
Put it at the end. Okay, I mean, it's just the logical thing to do. So it's different from a lambda. So you'd look at this and you go, it's just like a lambda. And the big difference is the way it's called. So a lambda always has a delegate. That's another, I mean, I hate to keep saying this because we don't think about the heap all that much, but there's several features here that let us stay away from the heap. Okay, so you don't have to put that extra delegate on the heap. You don't have to have the extra class that a lambda has. Closures are handled more efficiently, and this is just flat faster. Okay, so this is basically a free thing to do to organize your code. The other way you could have done this is to make a private method, which was just another method here. And we have a couple of methods a little further down.
We do.
So you know, it could just be just a method, but there would be no indication then that the only context in which we expect this method to ever be called is that outer method. Now there's a couple of scenarios where this is especially helpful. Async methods that have some validation logic before you hit the actual code, that's a sample. Iterators is another example. And I just think it can help to organize some certain types of methods. I think if it's really long, you should look at what you're doing anyway. I mean, you should solve the bigger problem if you've got bigger problems. If you don't have single responsibility, you don't have single responsibility, and you're going to hate yourself. So I don't want this to be an excuse to write bad code, but on the other hand, I think it's a great way to just tidy some things up in a very nice way. You can't pass it outside. It's just there.
So, and just looking at the syntax here, and you know, it is very lambda-esque, or looks like a lambda, in the sense that the closure is capturing the namespace around the outside. Not the namespace, that's the wrong word, but the
scope.
The scope. Thank you. Around the values of like staff count and tuple and messages. So it's behaving that very same way, but you're telling me that it's
right. So the difference is that with the lambda expression, because you have to be able to pass that all around the universe. Okay, it actually has this special thing called a closure, which captures that actual variable that you're talking about, actually captures the real variable and passes it around the lambda wherever it needs to go. Because this is a very different purpose, this does something different. It actually executes in the surrounding scope. So you've got it executing in that broader scope, and you can just get right to those variables.
So is it possible for me, I can't pass like a reference to report somehow?
Yeah, you can't pass that around.
Or like if what's a good example of that? Well, like the one that comes to mind is like when you're working on like the native IO stack, you have to have a callback.
Right.
you can't treat
right.
this the same way.
No, because it's just a little private method. There's no delegate to it,
Okay.
and all of those things require delegates. Now, it can return values and take parameters.
Yes.
I just did a super simple one,
Right.
just in order to get it in place, and if people look at it and start thinking about how much they hate it, and if you hate it, don't use it. It's going to make things faster. Certain types of applications will run faster now,
Nice.
so it's a nice thing to have added to the system.
Very nice.
Yeah.